My name is Harald Adegu Simiyu, an African, of course, with three names. Simiyu is my dad's name. Adegu is my grandfather's name from my mother's side. If looking at my background, I was born in the year 1986, April 4th. And from that perspective, I was born from a Christian background. My father and mother got married. They were staying together. And it was a very good family. And both of them, they had strength for those nice morals. So we grew up with wisdom of compromise, respect for the elderly, and above all, we grew up knowing that fear of God is everything. However, our father was very tough. Our father was like a tyrant in the family. So my formative years was not something to like, because even crossing the gate could lead you to get some canes. So that means we lived growing up knowing that discipline was very key. And that one, I think, throughout what I'm going to talk about should be the key to your success, discipline. Because our parents at that particular time instituted discipline in everything you're supposed to do. Even talking to your sisters, the workers in the family and everything. So my background was like that. My father and mother, after some time, they separated. That's the year 1998, and I was in standard 7, which complicated our life a little bit because we had to move from one point to another. But sometimes you always say there's always a silver lining. There's always a reason why things happen like that, and I will explain later on. Because of that, moving from point A to point B made me who I am. That means there's some civility that joined my whole life. Yeah, that's how my background is.
Thank you. You've mentioned about the discipline, and I just relate with it because, it's part of the African experience growing up. So we can move on to, just link with the education. How education was for you, how you find it, how you found it from primary, going through the phases through high school. What was it like for you?
Yeah, my education experience, or let's say the student experience, started from the rural life, because I was born in Bungoma County, Kandui constituency. There's a village called Ekitale with an E, not the Kitale Transoya. There's an E before Kitale. That's between Nzoya factory going to Sangalo. That's a rural village. And that means all the schools in the rural village, the guys who were born in the 80s, most of them used to go barefoot in school. And we used to have one pair of uniform. That means you'd use the same uniform from Monday to Friday, then to be washed on Sunday, then you do it again. And most of our uniform had those indicators in the back, and nobody cared, because that's how life was. And our shirt, we used to have one button here, then our stomach was outside. But that was life. It made us who we are, because even that time, I remember in my primary school, there were some students or some pupils who will come from other school in town to join Luanda Primary School. The first 1 week, they'll be using their shoes and they'll be punished for the same. So they'll join the bandwagon of going barefoot to school. And in that school, I remember there were specific teachers who, particularly one of them was a mathematics teacher. And then there's another one for English teacher. The English teacher, God rest his soul, was called Mr. Walela, who passed on. That guy was tough. He used to instill English by force. He could cane you for nothing. And because of that, most of us who went through his hands, their English somehow sounded different. And there was this other teacher who was doing Swahili, and who was doing mathematics. He could cane us because he has arrived in class ahead of you. The things about primary school after that instilled into us a culture of we are supposed to strive harder to avoid punishments in that primary school, and be at the right place at the right time. Nowadays, I think with the change in curriculum, things have changed. But that time, caning was the key. That means we avoided caning to do the right thing. It's the same way like avoiding hell to go to heaven. So after getting to, that is Rwanda Primary School, up to Standard 7, I mentioned earlier that my mom and dad separated in 1998, which prompted us to shift. That means we had to follow with mom. And that made us to go to a boarding school in Kisi. That's Nyancho Adventist Preparatory School, whereby we enrolled to do Standard 7 and Standard 8. And that one gave us a picture of how living and being alone in school. I had some homesick at that particular time. I wanted to run out of school. I wanted to just say to hell with this kind of life. But with one day after the other, I learned that life is what you make it. It was very, very hard. I remember even it affected my studies. I was not a very strong student in Standard 8. I remember out of 700 marks at that time, I only managed to get 405. That was not a mean feat for a person to pass. I was an average. In fact, let me say, because that was around 50%. And at that time, getting to secondary school, you're supposed to have performed excessively well. And my mom, I did not mention, my mom and dad were teachers. My dad was a primary school teacher, and my mom was a secondary school teacher. So using the position of my mom, she was teaching at Nyangori Boys. She was given a chance to enroll us in that school. Nyangori Boys is one of the strong schools in Western Province, and their cutoff marks was very high, but mine was very low. But because of her position, we were given that chance, myself and my brother, to join Nyangori Boys High School. And life was hard. I want to pause and say life was hard because this school was admitting higher and very strong students who had passed very well in KCPE. And for us, we are at the tail end. And performance at that time, when you get 800 marks out of 1200, you're almost number last. You'll wish the bottom-up approach was being invented in school, but life was very, very hard. And sometimes we could just swim through the tide, and that culture of, I came here as the last person, so I don't have to care. And my Form 1 and my Form 2, I was not pushing anything. I was just trying to wait for the end of the term, get your report card, go home, come back again, because I knew that I'm not better than others. So up Form 2 is when I realized that life is yours. And in Form 2, for going to Form 3, there are so many things that happened. I want to stress my secondary school because it changed my life. When I moved from 2 to going to Form 3, first of all, I was very poor in my mathematics. I was very poor in sciences. But that's the time we were selecting subjects. I was very good, but there was that culture that if you're doing 3 sciences in school, everybody will fear you that you are a choppy. Choppy means that you're a good guy. But when you do 2 sciences, that means you're going to do another subject called either social education ethics or CRE or a slightly easier subject. So guys opted to choose the harder subjects to be respected, not because they were good. I was among the guys who chose 3 subjects, not because I had an idea, but sometimes by serendipity we fall into a certain pool, then we work so hard to get out of it. I don't want to go to stories, but at the end of that, I remember that is the time, even my mother, there was one time I wanted to stop going to school because life was very hard in Form 3. My mother told me, choose, and stay at home, go to school, and she left me. And when I went to school, I remember it happened at that time, my mother was the one who came to start teaching us mathematics. It was second term of Form 3. And she used to give me questions every now and then. Harald, how do you see? Harald, how do you see? And it changed me because for once I realized that I could be the top cream in terms of mathematics. Actually, out of the 5 streams, in that stream of ours, I was sometimes number 2, number 3 in mathematics and all, not everything. And that one gave me an impotence and I believe that I can do it. And to make the long story short, from Form 3 going to Form 4, which were the exams that formed the part of our indexing, I was top 10, which gave me the index number that I carried throughout. And I never stepped back. So sometimes I talk about my challenges to be the reason to look back and say, if these challenges were not there, I could not be this guy. So my primary school has some challenges going to secondary school. Then later on, I'll talk about how my university started.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning about the mental health aspect of primary and secondary school. I think it is neglected a lot. People just assume, children are going to go to school, they're going to learn, there's nothing else they think about. So it's interesting hearing your story of how the shift happened from someone who was not performing very well to being a top performer. And, it's easy also to assume that, someone who is not performing well is just stupid. That's not the case. Clearly, you proved everyone wrong by being the top student, especially in mathematics, which I remember in Form 3 was not easy. It was not easy. And also, I must say, your mom was bold to give you that choice. Your mother was bold to give you that choice, You either go to school or you stay at home.
Yeah, she did that, and she left and she went to school.
For most people, they never get that choice when it comes to education. But I think it played a role in that change of attitude. So I wonder if it was at that moment also that the interest in science came in, or if it was later.
Actually, at that particular point, my interest in science changed in third term of Form 3. And I stress because I remember it happened. There was a biology teacher who came to us and told us, you people are smart, but the way you answer your questions make you to be less smart. I don't use the word stupid. And he told us, try to answer these questions this way. Particularly the section B and section C. Section B and C in biology that time. And to be honest, all of us who were in that group, because we had subgroups in school, all of us performed well in sciences. And because of that, most of us said, because we are good in sciences, we must prove to others that we are good. And I want to stress, because in my career, I've taught before, I've mentored some students. Analytics, when you're good with numbers, you become creative all around. You start thinking, even answering questions that are not scientific. When I improved my sciences and mathematics, I was able to improve all around. I was able to have what calls a critical thinking, the logical thinking about it. And it's when I realized that sometimes someone can ask you a question and you know that the answer should lie in between these parentheses. When you're not critical, someone will tell you, like, if you're having 1 million, then you're dividing it with 1 million people. How much are you supposed to give to each one? Of course, the answer can never be 2 million. The answer should be less than 1 million. So that's logical thinking. So if you're good with numbers, then you'll be able to do what? To know that this is the argument. And that's when I developed the strong interest in sciences. And even from that particular point, if you look at most students who are good, who have a career interest, they always say, now, I want to become a doctor. I want to become an engineer. I want to become a pilot. I want to become so and so and so and so. For me, at that particular time, I wanted to become two things, either an engineer or a pilot. And I said, for me to become a pilot, I need to be good in geography, mathematics, and physics. And to become an engineer, I need to be good in physics and mathematics and one of the sciences. So that's when I developed a strong interest. And number two, I don't have to forget the input that my parents also had to put in. My father was a primary school teacher. God rest his soul, he died in 2018. And my mom is a secondary school teacher. Actually, she just retired some 3 years ago. My father was a mathematics teacher in primary school. I don't know which other subjects he was teaching, but my mother was teaching, again, mathematics and physics. That means in our blood, there was also a feeling that if you're not good in mathematics and sciences, that means you're performing below par. So the two people also in my life also had a force. They were also trying to make it like it's good for you to be good with mathematics and sciences. Sometimes they always say that partiality is good, but sometimes also we have to look at where we are coming from and our friends. Not pushing people so hard, but also looking at where we are coming from. Like my parents had a vision that be good with mathematics. Otherwise, how can you fail mathematics and both your father and your mother are mathematics teacher? So that's another reason why I had to work out myself such that I don't embarrass my parents.
Yeah, and we'll go back to that question about mentorship and its role, but maybe we should cover first the university experience and then the career. But we'll start with the university experience, and then we'll talk some more about the mentorship. So how was university like for you?
University, the thought of getting to university is always an exciting thought for everybody in Kenya, particularly if you've gone through a very hard life in high school. You're always looking forward of the beautiful stories that everybody talks about the university. And for me, when I finished high school, I managed to get admission to university. That time I remember I got a B plus, a strong B plus. That time getting an A minus or A, it was very, very hard. You find like a school in Nyangori High School getting one A minus or two A minuses, there's B plus, maybe 5 of them. It was very hard. So I got a B plus. I'm going to the University of Nairobi. And honestly, I wanted to do engineering. But that time they had a cutoff of, I think, very high cutoff. You must get an A minus, which is very strong, or A to get engineering, electrical engineering that I wanted to do. The other path that I wanted is to become a pilot. And up to date, I'm 35 years old, but I always dream that one day I can just enroll to become a private pilot guy. So I had that dream of, even if I'm going to use so many ladders, but to get to the pilot. So I went to University of Nairobi and I talked through the people. That time was my uncle who told me, if you want to become a pilot, because piloting is not offered within the public universities in Kenya. Actually, that time piloting was being offered in South Africa. He said, do this course of Bachelor of Science in Meteorology, which is 30% of the piloting training. And when I went there, I selected meteorology as my first course. And at that point, people are laughing. They're saying, you're going to become a traditional weather forecaster. You're guys who are going to replace Ngwata Francis, sitting in a house and putting your hand outside and saying the temperature is 28 degrees. And I told them, man, that's not what I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm learning this. After this one, I'm going to enroll for the piloting course, which would be easier after having the Bachelor of Science. I did this, and life in the university was good. I will say generally my life in university was good because I encountered both sides of life, the good life and the bad life, and that life that is in between. And I will not go into details. The 4 years were good. And all the 4 years, there's only one time that I did not do the exam. And it was in second year that we had all night reading. And I forgot that the paper was supposed to be in the morning. I thought the paper was going to be in the afternoon. And I woke up when the paper was being done. That's the only time I did not do on paper. But all said and done, I performed very well in my university, and I got my second upper when I graduated in the year 2009. No discipline record, no nothing. And during my university life, when I was doing my meteorology, that was just trying to further my scientific desire, because for meteorology, you must be good in mathematics, you must be good in physics, you must be good in your geography, and also you must be good in your computer application. That means in programming a little. So within that kind of life, I learned so many things. And besides sticking to meteorology, I opened up wide that life is not all about what you're reading. It's about what all life gives you. So from that particular time is when I realized that I can open up and say, man, I can be a pilot. But what if I come home and I'm not piloting? What else can I do? It's when now I decided I want to do the CPA. CPAs was that time something that everybody will do after high school, because for us, between high school and university, you will stay for 2 years. But for me, I did not do that. I did that while I was in the university. I did CPA 1 and CPA 2 and stopped there and said, what am I going to use this short for? But later on, it came and helped me when I was doing my master's later on. Because after that, graduating 2009, being given powers to read, there was no job. I went to Mombasa, and from there, life was a little bit hard. I don't talk the career because there's an aspect you told me that you talk about career. I was in Mombasa and there was no job. And my dad, as he told me, my son, don't waste time. What can we do? Then I told him I want to do my master's. And he gave me 2 options. You want to do master's, or I give you money to come home and do some farming? And I told him I want to do masters. You're going to pay for me? He agreed that he's going to pay for me, because I knew if he's going to pay for me, then I'm choosing something that is not within the meteorology. Because for meteorology, I knew I'm going to get a scholarship, because I talked to the chairman of the department and say like, Harald, you're a good student. If the scholarship is going to come, we're going to consider you. And that time I enrolled for my master's in business administration finance. It was of Nairobi again from the year 2010. Something that my dad helped me for 1 year before being employed. Then I paid for the remaining part of the year and graduated again in 2012 for my master's in business and administration. Then in 2015, stayed a little bit longer. Then I got the scholarship again for my master's in climate change, of which I took it again and I did the whole master's. And also that time, something that I don't always like saying, in 2015, I was given 2 scholarships. I was given a scholarship for my master's of science, and I was also given a scholarship for my PhD in finance in 2015. So for my master's, I did it quickly. I finished and graduated in 2018, but my PhD, owing to the nature of my job, I'm still at the candidate point, whereby you finish your classwork, you are at that part of writing your thesis. So that is my university life.
Yeah, thank you. You've mentioned something about unemployment, and it's a big issue for a lot of people, especially young people. So maybe you can talk to us about how you got your first job.
Okay. When I was thinking about this first job, first of all, I wanted to ask myself, the first job that I was working as a teacher, I hustled as a teacher in Mombasa, whereby I was being paid 10,000 Kenyan shillings teaching a school, whereby you go there and they'll tell you, we don't have a biology teacher, so you can teach today biology. Then you teach biology, then you get the biology teacher, then they'll tell you teach physics. Then they tell you you have a physics teacher, or you can teach chemistry and mathematics, somehow like that. So that's the hustle. But I don't consider that as my job. My first formal employment came in 2011. God is so good. That's why I always tell people, don't always try to cast aspersion against possibilities. Because by that time when I was doing my meteorology course, I was not planning to be employed as a meteorologist. As I said earlier on, I wanted to become a pilot. However, being a pilot required you to have 10 million Kenyan shillings. Or there was a chance for you to become a cadet. But it just happened when we are finishing the cadet program that Kenya Airways and Corporate Bank had been scrapped. So we didn't have a job. So, and that time again, when we were finishing our meteorology, the government had placed an embargo in employment, particularly for Kenya Meteorological Department. So we were not seeing a scenario that we might be employed at that time. Most of my fellow colleagues, some of them ventured into other fields because meteorology has the aspect of computer, has the aspect of mathematics, has an aspect of physics. Some of them became teachers, others became computer wizards, and some of them went to the banks. It happened like that. Then myself, it just happened in 2011. Actually, it was 2010, December. There was an advert. The government was requiring meteorologists. I was so poor to a point whereby I didn't have even money to go to the computer, to the cyber to apply. I used my phone to apply for this job. And people always believe that the government, you must have a godfather. I didn't have a godfather. I applied using the phone, and as God will have it, I was shortlisted for that interview, and I was in Mombasa. Even before coming for an interview, they said you must have an ID and whatever. I didn't even have an original ID. To just make the whole story short, if God has a plan for you, it will happen. I came to Nairobi, I did my interview, I went back after another 3 weeks. We got the text messages that we were successful and we were supposed to report to work, which was in March of 2011. That's the employment I got, and up to today, I'm still employed under the Ministry of Environment as a meteorologist. Currently, I'm seconded to Seychelles government. For the past 4 years, I've been in Seychelles as a principal meteorologist. Here, I'm trying to help build up the capacity in meteorology, particularly in the aviation sector. So I've had almost a straight career path in meteorology, and I believe that anybody can still have the same straight path in whichever scientific field, of which I'll talk about later on.
Yeah, it's interesting that you still found yourself near aviation again. Yeah. We'd like to talk about now the aspect of, the research that you did in university and postgraduate, and maybe even that you're doing currently. What was the research really about?
Yeah. First of all, it matters to do research. That's the time where actually I'm not a full proponent of CBC, but I agree to some extent. If the intention is to further research, particularly in the high school sector, it will be good. Because when you become a scholar, you'll appreciate that research is a problem-solving technique. That when you put yourself into research, that means you've already acknowledged that there's a problem, then you're trying to find gaps to fill the problem. So in our 844 system, research wasn't and isn't up to today a major tool, particularly in the undergraduate level. That means most of the students, even some of them that I've been mentoring recently, they use it as a tool just to pass an exam. You're supposed to pass that research because it's required it's a unit that you're supposed to pass. But they don't appreciate the need as to why research is important. But when you move from your undergraduate to postgraduate, then you'll start appreciating that research is key to everything. For me, my first research, I think I did the effect of volcanic ash, the aviation industry. Now again, I'm talking about the strong interest I had in aviation. So I was looking about the effect, but now from the meteorological perspective. If you are to deeply ask me what I put into that paper, I'll just tell you some models I use, but necessarily the results, I cannot conclusively tell you. But when I went to do my master's, when now I realized that now the research that I'm writing, I can put it from the theoretical point to make it practical. Because the paper that I did it for my master's in the finance, I was looking at the small and medium enterprises financing. And I think up to today, there's a huge issue, particularly dealing with the small and medium enterprises, because most of them are personally owned, they don't have the funding. And I did some research using the pecking order theory to deal with the financing of small and medium enterprises, which is a gap particularly for the financial sector in Kenya. Even up to today, I do some consultancy in financing, where we financing using the debt or equity and how to absorb certain kind of costs. So this one is a research I did in my finance aspect of my master's. Then also, as I mentioned earlier on, I also did my master's in climate change. And again, in climate change, I was looking at the aspect of climate change with pollution, because people talk about climate change. And the guys that are nowadays I tell them that the most funded area right now in the whole world is climate change. And people say, you always choose what gives you bread on the table. So if you want money, go to the field that gives you money. So in climate, if you have to talk about climate, like myself, you talk about the factors or the parameters that are leading to climate change. So my research, I was trying to look at pollution levels, particularly in Kenya, the urban centers in Kenya. I looked at Kisumu, I looked at Nairobi, I looked at Mombasa, and I talked about it with relationship to climate change. Yes, there was certain unanswered question, because as it stands right now, in Kenya, we don't have the models or the technique to modulate the amount of pollution. That means the streetwise and stuff, we don't have it. It's very, very expensive. And that's why in Kenya, when people talk about climate change, some of us don't even understand what climate change is. We just say that's a jargon that people use it for money. But people who are developed somewhere else, they appreciate that climate change is a factor. And people are now trying to do a lot of research. And up to today, you ask me about even the research I'm doing and the future. I'm trying to look at the point and gridded way of looking at the climate change, with the day-to-day. We call it the anthropogenic contribution. That's the human aspect. That's my research that I'm doing currently in terms of the climate change. Then finally, I also want to talk about the research that I'm dealing. Of course, that one is not yet published because I'm still under candidate. My PhD is University of Nairobi. I'm still a candidate. I'm trying to look at now the financial aspect, particularly with these bonds that are being issued like in Kenya. I don't want to talk about it so much because it's still writing, but I'm looking at the bond and the futures. We call them the futures. The cryptocurrencies, if it can be introduced in the trading. Like in Africa, currently we don't have it. So can we use that to do hedging or whatever? I'm still looking at that. If I'm able to finish that, that will be my future research. I think I've slightly talked about the whole research aspect.
Yeah, you have. And like I said, it links to the current problems in the world, and it gives people hope when they see someone is working on it. Like, for example, climate change. We hope that development can be influenced by what climate we're actually experiencing. Like, can the development, the cities we build, the machines, the vehicles, the energy, can they really be focused in such a way that we do not harm the environment? And you also mentioned crypto. That's a really big area that's upcoming, and in Africa people are very skeptical about it. So when you have an expert at least talking about it, we know that Africa is safe. Yeah. So we want to talk a bit about now that aspect of mentorship, the role of mentorship in getting you to where you are, and what kind of mentorship you are currently doing.
Okay, the aspect of mentorship is a little bit, first of all, challenging because the society that we are in right now believes in quick cash. And to mentor someone does not look at the societal benefit. They look at my personal benefit. So if you're to come to a young guy or a young girl or a boy and tell them, I want to mentor you to become a teacher, they quickly tell you teachers don't earn a lot. They tell you teachers are the most victimized people, so they don't become a teacher. Some of them nowadays, they look at the art industry. They look at, I'm seeing Bahati, I'm seeing whoever, because they make quick cash. So when you try to mentor them into the aspect of stronger careers, some of them see it as a story that will end. It's just not something that can hold water. But however, being a teacher at some point, first of all, some people have seen me move from point A to point B to point C. And this one I say because some of them admire who I am. And I talk to them and I tell them, sometimes if you cannot use this ladder that is long or this one that's short, when I use the difference between the ladders, we have people who are born out of the riches. That means they don't have to be mentored. Their life is already set. Then we have people who are born out of the political elite, they're closer to the politics. That means also their path is a little bit different. But what if you can't? If you're not born out of the two, that means you have to work your way up the ladder. You have to work harder. Now, for me, I've mentored some students, particularly those people who believe that the key to success is education. It's education. I've sat down with them, and sometimes they come to ask me, what are the opportunities in your field? And before I go specific to my field, science as a discipline has a wide range of anything. Like, for instance, I'm a meteorologist. Tomorrow I can be employed as a physicist because they know I've done physics. The other day I can be employed as a quantitative guy because I've done mathematics, because I know the quantitative techniques. To be a scientist, you are able to be taken around because you are wide. Your mind is not narrow. This one I say it with a lot of power. So because of that, first of all, charity begins at home. My sister is graduating from University of Nairobi doing meteorology end of this year. Actually, it should be next month. I have some other two ladies who are still graduating the same with my sister. And these people, before they joined the university, they talked to me. And they asked me, some of them wanted to do education. And I told them, man, of course, I don't have issues becoming a teacher. And I made fun of them. And I told them, like, anybody can be a teacher, but not everybody can become a meteorologist or a biotechnician or whatever, but everybody can be a teacher. Of course, no offense to teachers, but I was trying to push them at least to become specific in whatever they wanted to do. And they asked me, Harry, they called me Harry. In recent times, when I was in Kenya, I used to travel for conferences, used to travel for workshops and stuff. And some of them envied because, as it is sometimes for have a hobby of traveling or adventure. So they said they wanted to be like me. And I told them, do meteorology then. Then they said, will there be a job? I told them, don't worry about the job. The job will come at this particular time. You go to school, do good. And after you finish, you graduate, come and ask me if there will be a job. From there, we can still look at jobs. And believe you me, today we have so many climate bodies. We have Red Cross, we have the K International, we have the UNFCCC, we have the Kenyan Meteorological, we have the agriculture. All of them, they want meteorologists to have them in climate modeling. Now, some of them, they are very happy. They have not gotten the job, but believe you me, nowadays, because of research, people are looking at people who can help them to do this and that, particularly in the research field, as we talked earlier on. Because when you go to the United Nations Environmental Program, they want someone who can modulate climate. If you go to K International or whatever, they want to look at people who can come up with climate in the ASAL areas. Go to Red Cross, like right now, recently the president said we're having issues with the drought, famine, whatever. They want someone who can come up with the drought modeling, which is still a climate, everything. So you see, like now all the avenues are open. Believe me, that time when I was advising with them, I wasn't seeing all this. But it depends on how good you are being aggressive in life. When you have a bargaining stick or you're having something that you can bargain with, you fit everywhere. And that's the reason why, as it stands right now, most people who've gone through meteorology, it just depends on how good you are. Not necessarily meteorology, even if you go through doing maybe chemistry. So many research. I have my friends who are doing industrial chemistry. Almost all the companies nowadays, they want a chemist, they want an engineer. So it depends. And it's very, very hard to find a person who's gone through the science and is just sitting at home. It gives you the analytics on creativity for you to find how to fit in life. So that's how it is. So from there, I mentored all these kind of students of mine. And some of them, believe in me, after this trench is leaving, I'm seeing others who are coming. And in mentorship, people always see, like, if these one have been successful, then others will come. And if these others, then it becomes a routine. But if you fail through the supply chain, then others feel like, I cannot do this. And that's why I tell all my friends and my peers and the young ones, yes, you can do the art industry, but what if it breaks down? What else can you do? Like for me, I can run. Of course, I'm not an athlete. I'm not a professional athlete. But what if I break my foot? Where else can I go? That means if you have something in your head, you can be able to know that you can juggle some balls and feet. That's why I mentor, and up to today, the community, even some of them, they partner with me to do the research. We write them with papers. Some of them they produce. I peer review their papers. They publish, and by so they're increasing their visibility. And that's how I mentor most of my young ones.
Yeah, and when you talk about education, I think it's a safe option for a lot of people. So I really like it that you encourage people to venture out and, find things that they actually like doing, because one of the worst things that a student can meet is a poorly motivated teacher, someone who just did education, to survive. So, yeah, I'm so happy that you're encouraging, young people to respond to the needs of the world, actually. So everyone has had, highs and lows in career, in education. So are there some highs and lows that you can talk about that young people can learn from?
In Form 3, it was my lowest because I was at my adolescence. And I remember we were supposed to go back to a tuition. That time we had tuition. And I had a girlfriend. Who had come visiting me. And it was on a Sunday, I remember very well. And while I was talking to her, my mom found us there. It was around 5 p.m. and I was supposed to have reported to school. And she slapped me in front of my girlfriend. Yeah, something small, but at that time, because I was an adolescent, it was a big issue. And for once, I told my mom, if you can slap me in front of my girlfriend because of school, to hell with this school. And at that time, the only option I thought like life on the street was the best. I went to the bus stop. It was around 6:30 in the evening and waited for a bus. I wanted to hitch a hike to Kisumu town and maybe spend there and find some home whereby I'll go and do some guy just cleaning or whatever. That's what I wanted. One day I felt like the life in school was unbearable. And to make matters worse, my mom has embarrassed me in front of my girlfriend. If it happened the way I wanted that particular time, I don't know where I would be. Because my mom was a tough person I mentioned earlier on. She did not follow me. After staying in the car till around 10 p.m., I came back to the house. And on Monday, she went to school. She didn't ask me to go to school. And around 10 a.m., after realizing that I was the only one remaining, all the other guys had gone to school, I walked slowly to school. That was my lowest. But from that particular point, it has never happened again. My high, I've had so many highs in life, so I really don't know which one. But first of all, one of my highs is when I, first of all, got scholarships. There are so many scholarships I've got. Some of them you try and just come. That means they appreciate that your effort. So in terms of academics, that's one of my highs. In terms of my career, I was among just applying, then you get things. And I feel like that was one of the best moments that happened during my time, because it's like everything that I've been working for just came to fruition. So, and also, last but not least, I've always believed like when you give me a chance, particularly when you give me a chance for an interview, most of the time I'm always there. And that's the reason why when this opportunity also came for me to be seconded to the Seychelles, I applied and I got it. It was one of my highs. And here I've been working abroad at least for 4 years. A very, very nice experience. Some people say Seychelles in their bucket list, and I'm here working. I don't see that why it's in the bucket list, because I enjoy the beauties of Seychelles. So that is one of my good highs because of my effort that I put in.
Yeah, your story is so inspirational, because for a lot of people, when they're coming through life from education, to campus looking for work, they don't have people to hold their hands. And yours is one where you just followed the system and it worked out. So our next topic would be about mental health. It's been a challenge for young people a lot, and maybe you have some comments about it.
Yeah, mental health is a bad thing, particularly because it manifests itself in so many things. And sometimes I look at it as the strife beyond the limit. You want to be someone else. Sometimes you put pressure on yourself too much, as opposed to letting things flow the way they are. Okay, there's a way that you're supposed to work hard. But when you stretch yourself past a certain point, you stress your capacity to reason or to live well. However, the only aspect that I will always want to advise the young, most people who have a mental issue, there is a percentage at which in the research area is when you have what called as the substance abuse. And it's because of the pressure that most people have, the likeliness that you want to be someone else, you venture into strong alcoholism, into strong drugs, and also other substances that put you under pressure. and they alter your reasoning capacity, which brings into an issue with mental health. My life throughout, some of my friends have fallen the victim, and I'm sorry to say that some of them, it became worse. They died. Some of them, they went to a point of no return in mental health, and some of them have gone back to rehab and they're good people. But the whole aspect of mental health, this one I'll advise people: if you cannot stretch past a certain level, let it be. The hand will only scratch where it gets. Don't be equal to others. Have your own race. Don't put yourself under any pressure, because when you put yourself under extreme pressure, that means that one, you're leading to malfunctioning or the abnormality of your brain or your mental capacity. And that's the reason why the mental stress comes in, which leads to other disorders, and its manifestations are catastrophic. It's sometimes depression, death, and other things. So I will advise my young ones: life is the longest thing that you ever had. Enjoy and live within it. But do the right thing. Do the right thing. Go to school, and God will always reward your efforts.
Thank you. As a man who has gone through the system, and by qualification, you can now call you a scientist. What tips do you have for young scientists, people who want to venture into the field of science, and want to do, they say, I want to do masters, I want to advance, I want to do PhD. So what tips do you have for young people who want to be scientists?
Thank you. I think you even tried to answer me. Because of the need of so many people becoming scientists, so many people world over, they have ventured into the field of science. That means the pool of scientists is increasing. For you to be seen, you need to go above the shoulders of these scientists. Don't stop at your undergraduate. Do your master's. And if all goes well, do your PhD. Because nowadays, undergraduate will be your entry level into the science. But how many people are in the science? The same way I was explaining earlier on that when I got myself in Form 1, that school was admitting around 250 students. And 250 students, all of them had 430 marks and above. So if you got in there and you're just comfortable, you will never get to the top unless you work slightly harder. So as a scientist, it's good for you to do at least a master's. And most of these companies, the consultancy, the international organization, they are looking at the policy. If you're able to do the policy, that means they are looking for masters. And for you to be able to know and this is not all about Kenya, it's all over the world. It's not about science only. Most this profession, because the uptake of education has increased. So if you want to stand taller than others, move beyond the entry, go to your masters. And number 2, some of us feel like the PhD is more of a research, which is okay. PhD is more of research. If you want to have a technical aspect in life, partner or complement your skill with some diploma courses. Like it's good right now, the world is going to artificial intelligence. Partner yourself with maybe computer programming a little bit. It will help you do your data statistics much, much better, as opposed to just having a one-side science. So add yourself with small technical skills. Most of these jobs nowadays, they want you to know how far you can reach. Like right now in the climate industry, they'll ask you the climate, the economies of climate. That means they also want someone who knows about the economics. Or they will say the social climate. They want to know someone who knows about sociology. So it's good, something like you complement your skill, but above all, don't stick at the ground level. Go higher. Get to the master's level. Maybe your children's children, it will be important for them to have even 2 PhD, or maybe they're postdoctoral at that particular level. So that's one I will advise: never be complimented. And the last but not least, this one I also tell my sisters: don't sit and think that job will look for you. Be aggressive. Go out there. Tell people I want this. They will give you an opportunity to show why you want it. You sit down there and say like, I'm waiting for my opportunity to come. It will never come. Be aggressive. In life, you must work hard. The survival for the fittest.
Thank you. I think it has also answered the question I had about, the future prospects, because you have to stand up above the crowd for you to be noticed.
Yes.
And that is how it helps you, to get more opportunities. So we can go to, you're almost at the tail end of the interview now. So we can maybe talk about the future for you. What does the future hold, in terms of careers and research?
Yeah, actually, sorry, let's make sense. For me, my future right now is I want to finish first of all, in terms of my education, I want to finish my PhD in finance, and also do another PhD in the climate change. If I do that, then I will be poised to be able to do the finances and climate. Because nowadays, when you talk about climate change, you're also looking at mitigation of the costs. So that is my future aspect in terms of my research work. In terms of the career, after I finish this one, I want to mentor. I want to go into consultancy. And everybody nowadays you don't want to be employed. When I was in school, I was told that when you're employed, I think there's a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which says, let money work for you. Does not mean that you don't have to work. Working is for you to get some capital. Then if you're able to survive, let the money work for you. And in the scholarly work, it's good for you to go into consultancy at some point. Consultancy has no retirement. You can consult and consult and consult until you get to a point whereby your body doesn't want. But employment at the age of 60, or you can be fired. You'll be lucky to get to 60, or you can be fired at any particular point in time. So my future plans is, first of all, to arm myself with experience, particularly in the climate and in the finance. Then when I have the experience very well, then I leave the young ones to come in, because unless we exit, others will not come in. Then the young ones will come in. Then that particular point will open more opportunities, because when I have a consultancy firm, I'll not be working alone. I'll be working with a team. So my point is to get to the consultancy. If I get there, I'll have achieved what I've wanted in my life. Then I also, without forgetting, I mentioned earlier on that maybe in future, I'll go and do my piloting.
Yeah, the piloting, I think, it's still an option out there. It's and at least you'll do it more of now as a private thing, yes, where you can also have your own chopper.
True.
Yeah. So we are at we are almost at the end of the interview. So maybe there are some talking points that you wanted to emphasize. Now is the time to talk about them, and things maybe that some questions that you'd have liked to answer that maybe we didn't ask. Now this is the time to talk about them.
Okay. First of all, it's like I was just trying to get a snippet of what I'm saying. First of all, in life, discipline and morality is very key. Be disciplined, and morality is doing the right thing, respecting the elders, and knowing that life entails this and that and that. It's morality. It's whereby you respect wisdom and stuff. Number 2, you need to set your targets in life. Sometimes don't chase the wind, but know that you're not just there to pass the wind. So have your targets and know that at this particular time in life, you must try to achieve, or you are near to achieving that. So set your careers right. The career path should always be something that you look at and say, fine, I'm on the right path. Number 3, friends are people that help us to see the world. It's a very good thing. But don't be influenced. Don't compete with them. Don't compete with them. Sometimes you might have good friends who will show you that life is all about it. But don't compete to outshine them. Some of them, they have already set career. Some of them are slightly poor. So it will be good for you if you don't compete them. You follow your path. At the end of the day, God will reward you. That's all about friendship. And last but not least, education has no end. Education has no end. If you're a scholar, always try to learn one or two things. Learn one or two things. And education is it will not be a wasted time. At the end of it all, even if you'll not be employed in your specific career, you'll be able to manage to get some employment, even if it's not specifically in that career. So education is the key. I'll still insist, education is the key. Try your level best to be good in solving problems academically or using what we call as intelligence, so that whenever you're going for any discussion, don't always be the one telling people, you go away, because you don't have an answer. So that's some of the snippets that I've tried to find in this kind of presentation.
Do you want to start your own podcast? Start with some simple gear that you already have and a quiet space. Simple gear includes a microphone, editing software, and host of your podcast. Simple microphones include the ones on your phones and computers, or a simple recorder, which you can upgrade later. For the editing software, I use Audacity, which is free and simple to use. Buzzsprout, which over 1,000 other fellow podcasters like me use, is one of the podcast hosting providers you can use. Buzzsprout has helped me link my show on every major podcast platform. With the endless number and regularly updated tutorials and good customer service support Buzzsprout offers, my podcasting journey has been made easy. Following the link in the show notes, let Buzzsprout know we sent you, gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and helps support our show.